chosen one. Listen carefully. The moment you whispered yes to what heaven had been waiting to hear, all creation stood still. Time itself seemed to pause between one heartbeat and the next. The sound of your surrender echoed through eternity like a chord struck by divine hands. You did not see it, but heaven did, and the silence that followed became sacred. For so long, you wrestled with hesitation. You prayed. You questioned. You feared stepping outside the familiar. Nights of doubt pressed on your chest. But something within you would not let go. You felt that quiet pull, not a shout, but a whisper that refused to fade. And when your spirit finally yielded, heaven exhaled. You didn't need thunder. You didn't need a sign written across the sky. You needed trust. That was the moment everything changed, not because you moved mountains, but because you finally stopped resisting the one who made them. Heaven stilled, then roared. Somewhere in the unseen, angels rose from their stations. Trumpets trembled. The king smiled. All of heaven recognized what had just happened. One chosen one had finally aligned their will with his. You may not have felt the tremor beneath your feet, but the realms did. There's a story whispered among those who have walked this path. A young man once prayed for direction, but was terrified of losing control. For years, he circled the same mountain, asking for confirmation while ignoring conviction. One night, as tears soaked his pillow, he heard a voice, gentle but firm. "Will you trust me even when you don't understand?" He said yes through sobs. And that yes changed everything. The next morning, peace entered his room like sunlight through glass. He didn't have all the answers, but he finally had alignment. That's what your yes has done. You have entered that same peace. Heaven did not rejoice because you achieved something grand. It rejoiced because you obeyed. There is no higher victory than obedience. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 126, verse 2, "Our mouths were filled with laughter, our tongues with songs of joy. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them." Heaven's laughter is not noise, it's a melody. The sound of joy that breaks centuries of silence. The same laughter that rang out when Sarah held Isaac, when Joseph's chains fell, when the stone rolled away from the tomb. That joy surrounds you now. Imagine a sea of light, millions of wings moving in rhythm, a golden storm of praise circling the throne. Your name is spoken in the song, not as a sound of pride, but as testimony. Heaven knows what it cost you to obey. Heaven knows the battles that led here. You have crossed a line that cannot be undone. The enemy tried to bury your purpose under fear, but obedience dug it out. That single yes has shifted the landscape of your destiny. You are walking in a different light now. The world might not notice yet, but the spiritual realm has already adjusted to your new position. Don't rush this moment. Let it sink in. Feel the stillness that follows obedience that deep. Cleansing silence where you realize you are no longer fighting God's will but flowing with it. This is where true strength begins. You are not being called to perfection. You are being called to alignment. You are not being asked to know everything. You are being asked to trust the one who does. And every time you do, heaven celebrates again. When heaven erupted in joy, it wasn't just for what you did, it was for who you became. A vessel ready to carry divine light. A living proof that surrender is stronger than control. If this truth stirs something deep in your spirit, Let heaven see your agreement. Comment 33, not as a number, but as a sign that your heart has aligned with His. And if you want to stay in this flow, walking daily in His guidance and strength, share this moment. Subscribe, not out of habit, but as an act of connection, joining others who are also learning to walk in His will. Heaven's eyes are still on you. Chosen one, the celebration has only begun. Heaven is still echoing with your obedience, a sound that refuses to fade. Every step you take in faith keeps that melody alive, weaving your name into eternity's song. The angels are still watching, whispering your name like a promise kept. Each sunrise reminds them the chosen one has begun walking fully in His will. The earth shifted beneath you the moment heaven rejoiced. What was unseen began to tremble, like the first breath before a storm of glory. You didn't notice it with your eyes, but your spirit felt the stirring, that quiet sense that something around you had changed forever. You woke up the next morning, and the air felt different. The same walls surrounded you, the same sky hung above, but there was weight to everything. The ground beneath your feet no longer felt like ordinary soil. It carried the pulse of divine movement. Heaven had shifted its attention toward you, not because you demanded it, but because you aligned with it. Every chosen one reaches this moment, that invisible threshold between ordinary and destiny. It's the moment when your steps start carrying spiritual weight, when your words begin to carry echo. You might not see fire or hear thunder, but even creation recognizes that a vessel has been awakened. You may wonder why everything feels heavier now, why your heart stirs with deeper conviction, why the things that once satisfied you now feel shallow. It's because the atmosphere of your life has changed. The spiritual gravity has intensified. You are walking in territory that no longer belongs to comfort. It belongs to calling. There's a story told of a woman who spent years waiting on a promise that seemed impossible. She prayed faithfully, but saw nothing move. Then one night, as she was praying, she felt the ground beneath her feet shake ever so slightly, not physically, but within her soul. It was as if something ancient had just awakened. From that day forward, everything began to align. The right people came, old fears left, and divine order entered her steps. She said later, "It was as if the earth beneath me recognized that heaven had moved." End of. That's what happens when you step into His will. The natural and the supernatural begin to interact. The unseen aligns with the seen. The ground recognizes the authority walking upon it. You are not the same anymore. You carry divine weight, and the very air knows it. The prophet Jeremiah once spoke of this kind of divine shift, when heaven's word collides with human obedience and something unshakable is born. You have now entered that collision. Every delay, every tear, every waiting season was part of preparing the soil beneath you for this moment. Now you will notice things begin to change around you, not because you're striving, but because God has established order. Opportunities that once hid from you will begin to emerge. People who could not understand you before will begin to see your purpose clearly. Even opposition will serve its purpose to reveal the strength of your foundation. The Word of God declares in the book of Isaiah, chapter 55, verse 12, "You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands." Heaven is not quiet when obedience manifests on earth. Creation itself celebrates. The mountains sing, the winds carry praise. Every step you take in faith becomes an offering that nature recognizes. That's why sometimes you feel peace that makes no sense, or joy that rises for no reason. It's because heaven is announcing the shift has happened. This shift also brings clarity. Things that once confused, you will now begin to make sense. You'll start to see patterns, divine fingerprints marking your past. You'll understand why certain doors had to close, why certain people had to leave, and why certain prayers seemed unanswered. They were not denials, they were delays, designed to align you with His perfect will. And now that alignment has come, you stand on the edge of something that eyes have not seen. The same ground that once felt heavy will now feel sacred. The same air that once felt stale will now feel charged with divine presence. You may not hear applause. You may not see visible miracles yet. But trust this: heaven has already declared your movement successful. The earth has already adjusted to your new position. Every step you take now is being recorded in the eternal story written by God's own hand. Walk slowly. Breathe deeply. Feel the shift under your feet. You are no longer wandering. You are walking in rhythm with eternity. The ground beneath you knows your name. And when you walk, darkness notices. Not because you boast light, but because you carry the source of it. You are no longer moving in circles. You are moving forward, carried by purpose, guided by grace. There is something unshakable rising in you now, something that cannot return to what it once was. The ground has shifted. Heaven has spoken. You are part of that divine movement. Every tear became prophecy. You didn't know it then, but heaven did. Each drop that fell carried words, unspoken prayers that only the Spirit could translate. The nights you spent in silence were not wasted. They were sowing seasons in disguise. When you wept in frustration, heaven recorded every tear like ink on sacred parchment. Nothing was lost. Every heartbreak was heard. There were moments you thought your pain meant punishment, but it was preparation. You asked why the road had to be so steep, why every door seemed to close at once, why those you trusted turned away. Yet all along, the divine hand was shaping your story through sorrow. The ground watered by your tears was becoming the soil where promise would bloom. The story of one chosen woman comes to mind, a servant who prayed in the shadows, unseen by anyone but God. She longed for a breakthrough, yet faced year after year of silence. One night, she knelt in desperation, her tears soaking the earth beneath her. She said nothing, for there were no words left. But heaven understood her language, the language of tears. Not long after, her prayer took form in the shape of a promise fulfilled. She would later say, "I didn't realize my tears were seeds." Endo, you, too, have been sowing in secret. The same pain that almost broke you has become your offering. Every tear you cried was prophecy, a declaration that something greater would rise from your sorrow. Heaven has never been deaf to your cry. It has been waiting for the appointed time to turn pain into purpose. As written in the book of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 1. Come, let us return to the Lord, for He has torn us, that He may heal us. He has struck us down, and He will bind us up. That verse carries a truth few understand. Divine wounds are never wasted. God allows breaking only when He intends to rebuild you stronger. He tears, not to destroy, but to heal, and healing has already begun. Look back for a moment. Can you see it now? The pattern, The precision, how every heartbreak redirected you toward something eternal. The people who left made space for purity. The rejection that hurt you the most was the redirection that saved you. Even your loneliness became holy ground, where you learned to recognize His presence without needing applause. Your tears were never weakness. They were consecration. Heaven does not measure strength by how little you cry, but by how deeply you trust, even while you weep. Each tear on earth became a declaration in heaven that you still believe that you are not done, that your spirit refuses to bow to despair. You see, God never wastes a tear. He gathers them like jewels, polishing them until they reflect His glory. Every trial you faced, every disappointment you endured, every why that lingered in your chest, all of it was shaping you for the moment you are stepping into now. There's something sacred about pain when it's surrendered. It stops being torment and becomes transformation. It no longer crushes, it creates. That's why heaven calls your tears prophecy. Because what you lost is not the end of your story, it's the seed of your next season. When you cried, the enemy thought it was defeat, but heaven heard victory. What fell from your eyes watered the roots of faith inside you. The more you wept, the deeper those roots grew. Now the fruit of that hidden growth is about to emerge. Do not despise the tears you've shed. They were building altars, not puddles. Each one invited God closer. And now, every drop that once burned your cheeks is testifying before heaven that you are still standing, still chosen, still faithful. Heaven has written your tears into its timeline. Every time you cried in surrender rather than bitterness, you declared trust. Every time you whispered, "I still believe," even when it hurt, you preached a sermon stronger than any words could ever reach. So now, let this moment be one of remembrance, not of pain, but of purpose. Your tears have already opened doors you haven't even walked through yet. Comment, "Still I rise." I'll write it as a seal, a declaration, a whisper of faith that heaven recognizes. It's not just a phrase, it's your prophecy in motion. Because every tear you shed was never wasted, it was holy water preparing your harvest. When you type those words, you're not repeating something small, you're testifying that pain no longer defines you. It refines you. You are declaring to heaven and to yourself that every fall has forged your strength, and every wound has become a doorway to glory. You were never ordinary. The signs were there long before you realized it, the way your heart sensed things others missed, the way silence spoke to you, louder than noise, the way your spirit felt restless in shallow places. You were never designed to blend in. You were designed to disrupt darkness. From childhood, there were moments you could not explain, times when you felt both seen and invisible, when your presence brought peace to some and discomfort to others. You often wondered why rejection followed you like a shadow, why misunderstanding became your companion. But now you are beginning to see. It was not rejection, it was recognition. Darkness recognized the light in you before you did. The light you carry has always been a threat, not because of what you have done, but because of what you represent: divine purpose wrapped in human skin. Heaven placed something inside you that could not coexist comfortably with mediocrity. That's why you often felt out of place. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out as evidence that heaven still breathes through clay. There was a young man once, quiet and unnoticed, who always sensed he was different, not better, just different. He carried a compassion he didn't understand, a sensitivity that often felt like a curse. People called him weak because he felt deeply, but heaven called him chosen because he could feel what others ignored. Years later, that same heart that once broke easily became the vessel through which healing flowed to many. What the world mocked, heaven hath marked. The same is true for you. Every time someone told you that you were too much or too sensitive, heaven whispered, "No." Perfectly designed, the intensity inside you was never an accident. It was preparation. It's what allows you to discern what others overlook, to sense shifts before they're visible, to feel heaven's heartbeat in places where silence reigns. According to what is revealed in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." And those words were not written for someone distant. They are the blueprint of your being. You were set apart long before you took your first breath. And the seasons that broke you, they were shaping you for this exact calling. Being chosen is not glamorous, it's sacred weight. It means walking through fire without losing your light. It means carrying burdens that others may never understand. It means being refined when you thought you were being ruined. You've lived through those moments, haven't you? When your prayers seemed unanswered, when isolation pressed in, when even your victories felt lonely, yet somehow you never fully gave up. That resilience wasn't natural, it was supernatural. It was proof that the divine mark on your life could not be erased. Your uniqueness has always been your assignment. The very qualities that made you question yourself are the ones that make you dangerous to darkness. Your empathy, your hunger for truth, your refusal to become numb, these are divine weapons. They disarm cruelty, expose lies, and restore hope. The world calls them weakness, heaven calls them fire. And perhaps now you understand why some seasons were silent. Heaven was teaching you to find validation not in applause, but in presence. You were being trained to hear his voice in the stillness, so that when the world grows loud, you will not be moved. There will always be those who misunderstand you. Some will see your light and turn away, not because it offends them, but because it reveals what they're not ready to confront. Do not dim yourself to make them comfortable. Your calling was never meant to make sense to everyone, only to heaven. Think of yourself as a flame in a world of fog. You were not created to blend with the haze. You were made to cut through it. Light exposes, yes, but it also guides. It burns, but it also warms. You are that paradox, gentle yet fierce, humble yet bold, hidden yet radiant. Every chosen one goes through a season of obscurity, where the world overlooks what heaven is building. But obscurity is not neglect, it's protection. God hides what he values until it's ready. You have been hidden, not forgotten, prepared, not punished. And now that hiddenness is ending, your difference is not a flaw, it's your fingerprint. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it's your sensor for the divine. Your solitude was not exile, it was consecration. So, walk now with quiet confidence. You don't have to announce yourself. The light will do that for you. The darkness already knows your name. You were never ordinary, and now you finally know why. When heaven spoke your name, the universe responded. It was not a sound made of syllables, but of spirit. a vibration that moved through light itself. The moment your name was uttered from the throne, stars trembled, and the same breath that formed galaxies whispered your identity into being. You were not called by accident, you were summoned by purpose. It was the sound of belonging. Heaven does not speak your name casually. It sings it like a melody woven through eternity. Every chosen one carries that song somewhere within a memory of divine recognition. You may not remember the moment heaven spoke it, but your soul does. That's why certain words, places, or moments awaken something deep inside you, a sudden sense of home you can't explain. It's your spirit remembering its origin. When you finally walked in obedience, heaven repeated your name, again, louder, this time, and the sound filled the throne room. Angels joined in harmony. The record of your life shifted from waiting to fulfillment. The pages turned. Your obedience rewrote your timeline. There was a man once, nameless to the world, whose story mirrors yours. He spent years in silence. Certain God had forgotten his name. But one night, in prayer, he heard it not with his ears, but with his heart. It wasn't a word, it was recognition. He said later, "It felt as if light called me by name." From that night on, his walk changed. He didn't need applause, because he had already heard heaven call. This is what has happened to you. Heaven spoke your name again, not as a reminder of your past, but as a commissioning into your purpose. Every time you obey, that name grows brighter. Every time you trust, Iteko Lude, and the sound of your name in heaven frightens darkness more than any shout on earth. The voice of God thundered in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 1. "Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." Those words are not history. They are alive in you. You are not a wanderer. You are a called one. The same voice that separated light from darkness now calls you by name. Not just once, but continually. When heaven speaks your name, it is not for recognition, it is for revelation. It reminds you who you are when the world tries to make you forget. It calls you out of fear, out of shame, out of doubt, into identity. Sometimes you may still feel unseen, but remember, obscurity on earth is often the echo of visibility in heaven. Heaven has already celebrated what earth has yet to recognize. You are not forgotten, you are hidden until appointed. Picture this, your name glows like a lantern under the waves, its light piercing through oceans of silence. The deeper it sinks, the brighter it burns. Even in darkness, heaven can still find you. Another image, your name rising like smoke from golden incense, curling upward, carrying the scent of faith. That is how heaven knows you, by fragrance and by fire. And perhaps, right now, you can feel it, that quiet stirring in your chest, that warmth spreading through your soul. That's heaven speaking again, calling not just to remind you of who you are, but inviting you deeper into what you are becoming. So pause here for a moment. Let the sound of that calling fill you. It's not a command, it's a song, an invitation sung in grace. If your heart feels moved, not pushed, but drawn, let it respond in whatever way feels natural. Some respond with silence, some with tears, and some with small acts of acknowledgement, like lighting a candle, whispering a prayer, or even sharing the light they've received. That's what this is. an act of sharing light. When you pass it forward, you are not promoting a message, you are extending heaven's echo. When you click a simple gesture, a like, a share, or a subscribe, it becomes a reflection of that light spreading beyond you. Think of it not as a button, but as a ripple. Each small motion sends another wave of divine sound into the world. Somewhere, someone in darkness might hear the faint echo of heaven calling their name through you. And if this message awakens something in you, that quiet, yes, that longing to stay close to this presence, you can choose to remain part of this flow. Subscribe, not out of duty, but as an act of alignment, as if you're saying, I want to keep walking where heaven speaks. This isn't persuasion, it's invitation, because light shared multiplies, never diminishes. So let your heart decide, freely and beautifully, whether through silence or action. Let heaven know you heard your name and you will answer again. Heaven smiles still, repeating it softly, you are mine. The battle that crowned you was not fought with swords or armor. It was fought in silence in the quiet rooms where no one saw you breaking. In the moments when your heart screamed, but your lips whispered prayers instead. You didn't realize it then. But those were your battlegrounds. The ground of your pain became the soil of your authority. You have faced storms that others would have drowned in. There were nights when the weight on your chest felt too heavy to bear, when you wondered if God had turned his face away. But he hadn't. He was watching, shaping, refining. The fire you thought would destroy you was the forge that crowned you. There is a kind of victory heaven celebrates that the world can't recognize. It's not found in applause or achievement, it's found in endurance. Every time you chose faith instead of fear, heaven marked that moment as triumph. Every time you forgave when it would have been easier to hate, heaven added another jewel to your unseen crown. There's a story told of a soldier who never sought glory, only purpose. He fought unseen battles, anxiety, rejection, doubt. Others saw only his quiet strength, not the war beneath it. One day, after a long night of tears, he said, I realized I wasn't fighting to win, I was fighting to become. That realization became his turning point. The battle had made him into the man heaven needed him to be. You, too, have fought those invisible wars. You've carried questions that no one could answer. You've walked through fires that burned everything false away. And though you might still see scars, heaven sees armor. Those wounds that once bled now shine with the light of survival. They are proof you did not just endure, you overcame. According to what is revealed in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 12, Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. And if that verse isn't distant promise, it's your reflection. The battle that tried to break you has crowned you. Every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every time you stood back up when everything inside you wanted to stay down, all of it became your coronation. When heaven looks at you now, it doesn't see weakness. It sees a warrior who refused to bow to defeat. You fought not for glory, but for growth. And heaven calls that holy victory. There is a sacred weight to the crown you carry. It's invisible to human eyes, but felt deeply in your spirit. Sometimes you'll feel it in the quiet, that sense of gravity around your life. as though something precious has been placed upon you. That's not imagination. That's recognition. The crown of endurance rests upon you, and though battles may still come, you'll never fight them the same way again. Because once crowned, your fight changes. You no longer battle for survival, you battle from strength. You no longer fight to be seen. You fight because you've already been chosen. Let this truth settle into you. Your pain did not disqualify you, it qualified you. The suffering you endured didn't strip you of worth, it revealed it. Heaven doesn't crown perfection. Heaven crowns perseverance. If you could see what heaven sees when it looks at you, you would stop apologizing for your strength. You would stop minimizing your endurance. You would understand that your scars sing louder than your victories ever could. There's a divine mystery hidden in suffering that when it's surrendered, it transforms into glory. You've lived that mystery. The battle crowned you not with pride, but with humility, not with armor of gold, but with the radiance of grace. And now, this moment right here is the proof of your victory. You're still here, still breathing, still believing, still standing in the light that once felt distant. Type 888 below, not as a ritual, but as remembrance. It's a number that carries renewal, a symbol of resurrection and new beginnings. Let it be your silent shout to heaven, I made it, and I'm still rising. Because you are not a survivor of your battle, you are the crowned one born from it. Every scar you carry glows like gold in the Spirit's light. A reminder that what once hurt now shines. You were never abandoned in fire, you were refined through it. Each sunrise you face now carries a quiet applause from heaven. The unseen witnesses remember your endurance, whispering, this one did not fall. This one learned to rise through flames. Oh, the divine exchange began the moment you stopped striving to control what was never yours to carry. You laid down the plans you had so carefully built, and heaven placed something greater into your hands. It did not happen in a loud or spectacular way. It came quietly, like dawn creeping through a window. One moment, your hands were trembling from letting go, and the next, they were steady because something holy rested upon them. Letting go is never easy. The human heart clings to what it understands, familiar rhythms, predictable outcomes, comfortable patterns, but divine purpose rarely fits into human control. The things you lost weren't punishment, they were exchange. You surrendered what was temporary, and heaven gave you what was eternal. There's a sacred pattern in every chosen life, the breaking, the emptying, and then the filling. What you thought was the end was really an offering. When you lost what you couldn't live without, heaven finally had room to place what would truly keep you alive. You remember the moment you felt it, that strange mixture of grief and peace. You didn't understand it then, but you were standing in the holy middle of divine exchange. Every tear was currency. Every prayer you whispered while releasing what you loved was a transaction in heaven's economy. And when you said, "Let your will be done," heaven heard. It's time. MZ. There's a story of a man who spent years holding on to what he thought was his purpose. He built it with his own strength and feared losing it. But one day, everything he depended on collapsed. In the silence that followed, he thought he had lost everything until he realized his hands were finally free. Later, he said, "When I lost what I built, I found what God had already prepared." That's the essence of divine exchange. You give up control and receive calling. You surrender plans and receive purpose. You lose what you made and receive what was meant. According to what is written in the book of Philippians, chapter 3, verse 8, I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them garbage, that I may gain Christ. You may not have realized it, but that's what has been happening within you. Everything that fell apart wasn't taken, it was traded. The emptiness you felt was not absence, it was preparation. You were being positioned to receive something your old self could not hold. The divine exchange often feels like heartbreak at first. It feels like losing the life you thought you wanted. But slowly, quietly, you begin to sense a different kind of peace, one that doesn't depend on outcomes. You start to breathe differently. You begin to notice that your desires are changing, aligning with something higher. That's the miracle of surrender. It transforms the heart from seeking control to seeking connection. You no longer fight to prove yourself. You rest in being chosen. Sometimes the exchange happens through loss, a relationship, a dream, an identity. Other times, it comes through stillness, when heaven simply whispers, lay it down. It's not that what you held was bad, it was simply no longer needed for where you are going. And once you release it, something beautiful happens. The heaviness lifts. Your spirit expands. You begin to hear heaven more clearly and understand that obedience is not about sacrifice, it's about trust. Imagine a tree shedding its leaves. To the untrained eye, it looks like death, but in truth, it's life making room for new growth. The divine exchange is much the same. What falls away is not loss, it's transformation in disguise. The crown you carry now was not given in comfort, it was placed upon you through surrender. Heaven does not fill clenched fists, it fills open hands. So if you find yourself still letting go of something, do not fear. The moment of release is always followed by replacement. The divine never takes without giving, never empties without intention. Your surrender was never weakness. It was worship, your silent agreement with heaven that you trust the author more than the story. That's why, even when everything fell apart, peace followed. Heaven never leaves an empty space unfilled. Now you walk lighter, not because the road is easier, but because your burden has been exchanged for blessing. The weight of striving has been replaced by the wings of purpose. And this, chosen one, is the beauty of divine exchange. What you gave up in pain, you now carry in power. The roar of the throne room, that's what filled the heavens the moment you said yes. It was not chaos or noise, it was power organized into praise. The sound did not come from a place of reaction, but of recognition. Heaven wasn't surprised by your obedience, it had been waiting for it. The roar was the sound of alignment. Angels took their positions. The rhythm of eternity quickened, and the heartbeat of heaven pulsed through creation. When one chosen one steps into divine will, heaven's entire harmony adjusts. You didn't just make a choice, you shifted frequencies. In the unseen, light clashed with darkness, and your obedience became the sound of victory. That roar wasn't distant, it reverberated through your spirit. You might have felt it as peace, as tears, as stillness, but it was the echo of heaven, celebrating that the will of God had found a vessel once more. There's something awe-inspiring about that image. The vast throne room, walls of light stretching beyond sight, waves of sound rolling like oceans of gold. At the center, the throne gleams brighter than any sun, and surrounding it are millions of voices, angels, elders, living creatures, all lifting one endless song. That roar is not random. It is perfect order disguised as passion. And in that moment, your name was spoken in that sound. Not shouted, not forced, spoken like music. Heaven does not speak your name in volume, but in vibration, harmonizing it with purpose. When heaven roars, it is both celebration and decree. You might wonder how something happening in the unseen can affect the seen. But if you've ever felt sudden peace after prayer, if you've ever sensed invisible strength carrying you when you should have collapsed, that's the roar. It's heaven answering back, affirming that you're not walking alone. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 9, "What no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him." Len, that's what the roar declares, preparation fulfilled. Heaven's joy isn't noise for its own sake, it's prophecy. Every sound in that room carries a promise. Something unseen is about to be revealed. In your story, that roar became movement. Suddenly, situations that seemed frozen began to stir. Conversations shifted, connections appeared, and opportunities began to unfold. Not because of luck, but because heaven had already spoken. The roar had gone ahead of you. Sometimes, that roar manifests in subtle ways. A door closes and peace remains. A storm rises and fear doesn't. It's the evidence that heaven's frequency still surrounds you, even in silence. You're hearing the aftermath of that holy sound. You are learning that heaven's joy isn't always loud around you, but it is always alive within you. That roar has settled into your spirit now. It has become your inner confidence, your still assurance. You no longer need external validation because you've heard eternal affirmation. Think of it this way: a lion does not need to prove its strength. Its presence carries its roar. You carry heaven's sound the same way. It's not in your voice, but in your essence. When you walk into a room, peace follows. When you speak, conviction flows. When you pray, atmospheres shift. That's what happens when heaven's roar dwells in you. The sound of divine victory becomes part of your being. You are now a living echo of that throne room sound. The world may hear words from you, but the spirit realm hears authority. Your life, your steps, your faith, they all reverberate with heaven's rhythm. And sometimes, when you feel weary, when you think the roar has faded, remember this: heaven's sound never stops. It simply changes form. Sometimes it's a melody, sometimes a whisper, sometimes a heartbeat, but it never leaves you. The roar continues in your obedience, in your worship, in your persistence. Every act of faith sends its echo back upward, feeding the same song that once welcomed your surrender. Heaven and earth are now in conversation through you. This is what few understand. Obedience isn't just an act, it's a sound. It resonates, multiplies, and becomes a chorus. You have joined that eternal song, and the throne room still sings, still celebrates, still roars with joy each time you take another step in His will. You may not hear it, but heaven hears you. Even now, that roar hums quietly within you, a sacred vibration beneath every breath. It reminds you, Heaven's joy did not end that day. It walks beside you in every heartbeat. The mantle settles in slowly, like morning light creeping across the horizon. You don't wake up one day wearing it. You grow into it, moment by moment, prayer by prayer, surrender by surrender. It's not a garment you can see, yet its weight changes everything about how you move through the world. When heaven places a mantle, it's not a trophy, it's a trust. It's the evidence that God now moves through you in ways you once only read about. You don't choose it, it chooses you, wrapping itself around the parts of you refined by obedience. There's a stillness that comes with it, not pride, not fear, but reverence. You begin to sense heaven's presence resting heavier on your words, your silence, your very steps. You start to notice how conversations shift when you enter a room, how peace follows you like a fragrance. This is what it means to carry a mantle, to become a walking reminder of heaven's nearness. There was once a woman who lived quietly in the background of her small village. Few noticed her, yet she carried peace that defied understanding. People began coming to her not because of what she said, but because of what they felt when she prayed. Years later, someone asked her what her secret was. She smiled and said, "It's not mine. It rests on me." That's the mantle it rests. Not because we earn it, but because we yield it to the one who gives it. The mantle is never about status. It's about service. It's heaven saying, "Now that I've healed you, I can work through you. You once cried for purpose, and now that purpose wears you like a robe of light." As revealed in the second book of Kings, chapter 2, verse 13. He picked up the cloak that had fallen from Elijah and went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. When Elisha picked up Elijah's mantle, the heavens recognized the transfer. The same spirit that once rested upon one vessel now flowed through another. The waters parted, not because of who he was, but because of what rested on him. That's what has happened to you. Heaven's current has moved through your yes. The mantle changes your relationship with silence. What once felt like absence now feels like intimacy. You realize that heaven's power is not proven by noise, but by consistency, the quiet certainty that wherever you go, the presence of God has already arrived. Sometimes, the mantle feels heavy, not because it's a burden, but because it carries weight. It's the responsibility of grace, the calling to walk humbly, even while carrying glory. You'll have moments when the world cannot see the cost behind your calm, but heaven does. It remembers every battle that qualified you to carry this light. There's an old saying among those who walk closely with God: the mantle never fits comfortably at first. That's true. It reshapes you before it rests on you. It teaches you to speak slower, listen deeper, and act only when led. It's not a costume, it's a covenant. When you carry heaven's mantle, even your tears become intercession. Your thoughts turn into guidance. Your footsteps become prophecy. You become a living extension of divine will. And though the world may not understand the shift, the unseen realm does, because mantles carry signatures, and yours bears heaven's. There will come days when you'll feel unworthy of it. You'll wonder why God chose you when others seemed stronger or more qualified. But remember this: mantles don't rest on perfection, they rest on surrender. The most powerful vessels are rarely the most prepared, they are the most yielded. You might not see it, but others already feel it. The atmosphere changes when you walk in. Your words linger in hearts longer than you realize. That's not charisma, that's anointing. So walk with quiet confidence. You don't need to announce what you carry. Heaven already has. You've become the answer to prayers you once prayed. You've become the vessel heaven trusts to release what it's been storing. Comment, carry the fire. Lo, write it as a testimony, not to be seen, but to affirm that you are ready to live with heaven's mantle, fully resting upon you, steady, humble, and aflame, because this is what you were prepared for, not fame, but flame, not recognition, but revelation. The mantle has settled, and it fits you perfectly now. That fire you carry is not for display, it's for direction. It lights paths for the lost, warms the hearts of the weary, and reminds the world that heaven still moves through human hands, willing to serve. Your light terrifies darkness. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply shines, and that's enough. Darkness has no language for courage, nor defense against truth, no answer for love. The moment you chose to walk in His will, light began to move through you like a quiet river of fire. At first, you didn't notice it. You were still healing, still uncertain, still wondering if your faith mattered. But now the evidence is everywhere, in the peace that follows your presence, in the calm that settles when you speak, in the unseen protection that surrounds you like air. You have become a walking contradiction to the enemy's plan. There's something extraordinary about how heaven chooses to reveal its power. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it glows. The same light that once broke the silence of creation now flickers in you. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just is. And every step you take sends tremors through the shadows. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Zechariah. Chapter 2, verse 5. And I myself will be a wall of fire around it, declares the Lord, and I will be its glory within. You are living that promise now. Heaven has surrounded you with its fire and filled you with its glory. The same flame that once guarded Eden now burns quietly around your life, not to isolate, but to illuminate. You are not fragile light. You are a fortress of fire. Think about what light does. It doesn't argue with darkness. It simply exists. It doesn't try to prove its power. Its presence is proof enough. That's who you've become. Quiet strength, wrapped in divine illumination. Sometimes, the darkness will still try to approach, hoping you've forgotten who you are. But light doesn't retreat. It reveals. And every time you stand firm, every time you love when it's easier to hate, every time you choose forgiveness over bitterness, you are reminding the enemy that his time is up. There's a story of a woman who worked in a city filled with noise and confusion. Every day, she felt invisible, surrounded by people chasing meaning in shadows. One morning, Estranga told her, "You bring peace when you walk in." She didn't understand at first, but later she realized she had stopped carrying fear, and peace had taken its place. Light had made her a vessel of calm in a world that had forgotten how to rest. That's what your presence does now. Your light isn't loud, but it's undeniable. It doesn't seek attention, but it draws eyes. Not to you, to God within you. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs presence. And you've become that presence, a living sanctuary where others can remember heaven's nearness. Sometimes you'll walk into places and feel heaviness lift. Other times, You'll speak one sentence that feels ordinary, but it changes someone's heart completely. That's what divine light does. It moves unseen, yet transforms everything it touches. You've probably noticed how differently people respond to you now. Some are drawn to you, while others seem uneasy. Don't let that trouble you. Light always exposes, and not everyone is ready to see. Your job is not to dim your flame to comfort darkness. It's to keep burning so others can find their way home. And this light, it grows. The more you pour it out, the brighter it becomes. It multiplies through kindness, through truth, through peace that refuses to break. You are carrying heaven's wildfire, gentle, pure, uncontainable. Now pause for a moment. Feel the quiet glow around your spirit. It hums softly, like the heartbeat of heaven itself. You are not carrying borrowed light. It has become part of your essence. You are no longer just reflecting glory, you are radiating it. And if you feel a stirring in your heart right now, that pull to share this message of light with others, let it happen naturally. Don't do it out of duty, but out of delight. When you click like, share, or subscribe, don't think of it as a digital act. Think of it as passing the flame, like handing a torch to someone still walking through their night, like lighting a single candle in a vast cathedral, knowing even one flame can shift the darkness. Each small act of sharing becomes a spark in another soul's story. If this light has reached you, then it's already doing its work, not to gather followers, but to awaken faith, to remind hearts that even in silence, heaven is still speaking through those who shine. So let your response be free, not forced, an echo of gratitude, a quiet yes to being part of something luminous. The world grows brighter every time one heart decides to reflect what it's received. Your light terrifies darkness not because it tries, but because it simply refuses to go out. The ripple of obedience began the moment your heart said yes, a small sound on earth that became a great wave in heaven. What started in private has now become movement in the unseen. Obedience is never contained. It spreads, touches, awakens. The world may not see it, but heaven watches it multiply like light touching mirrors. Your yes did not stop with you. It traveled. It whispered through the corridors of heaven and began awakening others. Somewhere, someone who has been waiting for courage felt a sudden stirring in their chest without knowing why. That was the echo of your faith reaching them. Every obedient soul becomes a signal in the dark, a flare lighting another heart. There's a sacred mystery to obedience. It looks small, but carries immeasurable weight. It's like dropping a single pebble into still water. You can't predict how far the ripples will go, but they always move outward. Heaven measures not by size, but by sincerity. One act done in faith can realign entire generations. You've seen glimpses of it already. A word you spoke months ago, forgotten by you, became someone's confirmation. A quiet prayer you prayed for, a friend became their breakthrough. Even your silence, your endurance, your refusal to give up all of it has become testimony written into the fabric of time. There was once a teacher who lived simply, unnoticed by most. Each morning, before sunrise, he prayed for his students by name. He never knew that one of those students would grow up to bring healing to thousands. His prayers were ripples. His obedience was legacy. He didn't chase visibility, he chose faithfulness. And heaven multiplied what he offered in secret. That's the beauty of the ripple. It doesn't depend on recognition. You don't have to be seen to make an impact. The unseen kingdom operates differently. It values obedience over outcome, presence over performance. When you obey, even in quietness, heaven moves through you like wind through trees, invisible but undeniable. We are reminded through the writings of David in the book of Psalms, chapter 37, verse 5. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. Oh, He will act. That promise carries thunder in its simplicity. Your obedience never ends in stillness. It becomes movement under divine direction. You do your part. Heaven handles the rest. It's strange, isn't it? How a single step in the right direction can rearrange everything. How one decision to forgive, to trust, to let go can shift the landscape of lives you'll never meet. That's how heaven works, quietly, powerfully, endlessly. When you obey, heaven doesn't just bless you, it blesses through you. You become a conduit, a channel through which grace travels. Your obedience plants seeds in soil you'll never walk upon. You might not see the harvest, but heaven will. Even creation responds to obedient hearts. The ground under your feet feels the change. It recognizes faith when it touches it. That's why places of surrender often feel sacred long after you've moved on, because your obedience left a residue of presence there. Sometimes the ripple returns to you. You'll encounter someone unexpectedly kind, someone who reminds you of hope, and you'll realize, this is the fruit of what was once unseen. Heaven has a way of returning waves back to their source, carrying blessings multiplied by grace. You may wonder, does my small obedience really matter? The answer is always yes. Obedience is how heaven writes its story through human hands. What looks like one quiet act today could be the spark of an entire revival tomorrow. Your life is already testifying. People around you may not have words for it, but they feel it, the peace that surrounds you, the clarity that follows your choices, the steadiness that wasn't there before. These are the visible ripples of invisible obedience. And the deeper you walk in this rhythm, the more effortless it becomes. Obedience stops feeling like duty and begins to feel like breathing. You begin to recognize it not as loss, but as alignment, the moment when your will and heaven's will move as one. Some will misunderstand your choices, others will question your silence, but heaven will know. The one who sees in secret will continue multiplying your yes into miracles you may never witness on earth. That's how He works, unseen, yet unstoppable. So keep walking, keep trusting. The ripple of your obedience is still expanding, touching nations, healing hearts, transforming atmospheres. You may never fully grasp its reach, but one day, when heaven shows you the story from eternity's view, you'll see it clearly. Your obedience didn't just change your life, it changed lives far beyond your sight. The seal of heaven, that invisible mark, now rests upon you. It's not ink, not visible light, but a living signature pressed into your spirit. It is the evidence that you belong, the quiet authority that follows those who have been chosen and refined. You might not see it when you look in the mirror, but the spiritual realm recognizes it instantly. Darkness hesitates before approaching you. Angels move at your words. You've been stamped with divine ownership, not as property, but as purpose. The seal does not restrict it, releases. It says to the universe, this one is mine. Then, The seal was never earned. It was placed. It came the moment you surrendered fully, when your heart stopped wrestling and started resting. That was when heaven leaned close and sealed your soul with its breath. From that instant, you were never the same. There's a calm that comes with being sealed. You no longer chase validation, you carry confirmation. You no longer strive to prove your worth, you walk in it. That mark is heaven's answer to every insecurity that once haunted you. You may still face storms, but they can't unmark what heaven has marked. As written in the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, verse 13, when you believed, you were marked in him with a seal, the promised Holy Spirit. That verse isn't history. It's happening right now within you. The Holy Spirit is that seal, a living presence, not a passive symbol. It moves, speaks, and protects. When you walk into unknown places, that seal announces you before you arrive. It whispers to the unseen world, chosen, protected, commissioned. There's a story of a shepherd who once marked his sheep with oil before leading them through narrow, rocky paths. The mark wasn't decoration, it was protection. The scent of the oil kept predators away and healed small wounds from the journey. That's what heaven's seal does for you. It guards, heals, and identifies. It's not to make you proud, but to make you purposeful. Sometimes you'll feel the weight of that mark, not as a burden, but as awareness. You'll sense heaven tugging you away from paths that no longer fit. You'll notice conviction where there used to be confusion. The seal teaches you discernment. It aligns your spirit to heaven's voice. The sealed ones are not perfect. They're preserved. They may stumble, but they don't stay fallen. They may weep, but they never weep without hope. The seal doesn't make you immune to pain. It makes you impervious to destruction. You've probably felt this, that inner knowing, when something isn't for you anymore, even if it once was. That's the seal speaking. It draws boundaries around your destiny, keeping your spirit from wasting itself on what doesn't align. Being sealed means your life has divine direction. What touches you must first pass through heaven's permission. That's why certain battles seem delayed, not because God forgot you, but because he was filtering what could reach you. There's another layer to this seal. It's recognition. Heaven sees it as a mark of belonging, but hell sees it as a warning. It's the symbol of authority that darkness cannot counterfeit. You don't have to shout at the storm. Your seal speaks louder. And the longer you walk in this awareness, the more peace it brings. You stop competing. Stop comparing. Stop fearing missed opportunities. Because the sealed are never overlooked. They are timed. Everything that belongs to you will arrive precisely when heaven releases it. There will be moments when you feel invisible to people, but that's only because heaven has hidden you for protection. Seals are sacred. They're never displayed carelessly. God reveals what he marks only when the moment is right. So let this awareness settle into your heart. You are sealed by divine intention, not by accident. The mark you carry is your assurance that you're guided, guarded, and growing, even when you can't see the full picture. If these words resonate within you, if you feel that deep, peaceful knowing rising from inside, then let heaven see your agreement. Comment: 7,777, not as superstition, but as recognition. Let it be your quiet acknowledgement that you know you are sealed, that your life carries heaven's mark, and nothing can erase it. When you write 7,777, You're declaring that completion now lives in you. 4 sevens. Symbol of fullness and divine order. It's your way of saying, heaven's signature rests on my story, and I walk in that truth. End. The kingdom responds to movement, not noise. Not mere words, but movement, born from faith. The moment you obeyed, heaven began to rearrange itself around your purpose. Doors you didn't even know existed began to unlock. Pathways that once felt impossible started to clear. The will of God never moves halfway. It always completes what it begins. You may not see all the changes yet, but they are unfolding quietly. The kingdom operates with precision. It doesn't rush, it aligns. While you were still praying, answers were already being dispatched. While you were still processing, provision was already on its way. Obedience doesn't just please heaven, it activates it. Every word you've spoken in faith, every act of surrender, every time you said yes when it was easier to hide, heaven recorded it all. Those moments have now turned into momentum. The spiritual climate around your life is shifting. What used to resist you is now beginning to cooperate. What once delayed you is now accelerating your steps. There's a divine rhythm to how the kingdom responds. It moves in waves, not flashes. It doesn't deliver all at once because it's not about reaction, it's about relationship. God doesn't simply give you what you desire. He invites you to grow into the person who can steward it. The Word of God declares in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9, "The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house, says the Lord Almighty. And in this place I will grant peace." No, that verse is not just about buildings or temples, it's about you. You are the house. You are the vessel that now carries greater glory. What you walked through wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to expand your capacity. The weight you once despised has become the foundation for the greater that's coming. Heaven is not silent in this season, it's strategic. You might not hear thunder, but you'll sense the quiet rearranging of grace. The right connections will emerge, not by coincidence, but by orchestration. The resources you need will appear, not through striving, but through alignment. The kingdom has a way of sending what belongs to you at the exact moment you are ready to handle it. You will start to notice divine timing in unexpected places, people crossing your path who carry pieces of your next assignment, conversations that spark clarity, signs that confirm what you already felt within. These are not random moments, they're the fingerprints of heaven. Sometimes, the response of the kingdom is peace, the kind of peace that doesn't make sense. It's heaven's way of saying, "You're already where I need you to be." Other times, the response comes as stretching new responsibilities, new doors, new levels of faith. Don't resist it. The stretching is the proof of expansion. There's a truth the wise have always known. Heaven never wastes movement. Every step of faith is multiplied. Every act of obedience is compounded, like ripples turning into tides. Your faith has triggered waves that are now reaching shores you can't even see. You may think you've reached your limit, but heaven sees only the beginning. The former seasons were preparation, but this is activation. The kingdom is not just responding to your obedience, it's partnering with it. God isn't merely sending blessings your way, He's working through you to release them to others. And as this divine partnership deepens, your confidence will shift. You'll stop asking, "Will this work?" and start declaring, "It's already written. you'll realize that success in the kingdom isn't measured by speed, but by synchronization moving at the pace of grace. The kingdom's response also comes with confirmation. Signs will appear, not as coincidence, but as comfort. You'll see evidence of things aligning, relationships being restored, opportunities once closed, reopening in new ways. Heaven's order is unfolding. You are standing in the center of divine choreography. Remember, when the kingdom responds, it's not just for you, it's through you. The blessings that reach your hands are meant to overflow into others. The grace you receive becomes grace you release. That's how the kingdom multiplies through hearts, willing to be channels, not containers. So, as you continue walking in obedience, keep your spirit sensitive. The kingdom is in motion around you, rearranging details, guiding footsteps, fulfilling promises made long before you were aware of them. Every yes you've given heaven is being echoed back as now, and the glory ahead will be greater. The peace that follows will be deeper. The presence that surrounds you will be stronger, because the kingdom always responds to those who walk in His will, not with chaos, but with completion. The gathering of the chosen has already begun. It's not loud, not publicized, not built on the noise of crowds. It's quiet, deliberate, divine. Heaven never gathers in chaos. It gathers through alignment. One by one, hearts begin to stir, and souls who thought they were walking alone start to recognize each other by the light they carry. The chosen do not find each other through search. They find each other through resonance, like strings tuned to the same frequency. Their spirits hum in harmony even before words are exchanged. The connection is not social, it's spiritual. It's the invisible hand of heaven weaving destinies together for a single purpose: to reveal light to a darkening world. You've probably started noticing it. Conversations that go deeper than surface. Strangers who seem to speak the same language of faith. Encounters that feel orchestrated, too intentional to be chance. These are not coincidences. They are divine intersections. Reminders that the call of heaven is never solitary. Every chosen one carries part of a greater design. And now, the pieces are beginning to come together. The early church once experienced this mystery. Ordinary people, scattered and uncertain, were drawn together not by similarity but by spirit. They didn't need titles or platforms to know they belonged. The presence itself united them. When one spoke, another's heart burned in response. When one prayed, another's tears became agreement. That same current of unity is awakening again in this generation, subtle, pure, unforced. As written in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 16, "Then those who feared the Lord spoke with one another, and the Lord listened and heard them. A scroll of remembrance was written in His presence concerning those who feared the Lord and honored His name." And that verse reveals something profound. Heaven listens when the chosen gather. Every conversation rooted in reverence is recorded as worship. Every meeting born from obedience becomes a memorial in the presence of God. The gathering is not measured by numbers but by purity of purpose. You may never stand on a stage, but your voice carries weight when joined with others walking in His will. Heaven's power multiplies through unity, not visibility. That's why the enemy tries so hard to isolate the chosen, not to silence them individually, but to prevent their voices from becoming a collective roar. Yet, that attempt is failing. The chosen are finding each other again. Each carries a unique flame, but when they meet, those flames merge into fire. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that refines. Together, they form a living altar where God's presence dwells. You can feel it when you encounter another chosen one. The atmosphere shifts, time slows, and the space between you becomes sacred. This gathering is not about agreement on every idea. It's about alignment of heart. It's not uniformity, it's unity. Heaven values diversity. Every chosen one reflects a different facet of divine nature. Some carry wisdom like deep rivers. Others carry compassion like soft rain. And others carry boldness like thunder rolling through valleys. Together, they create the full sound of heaven's harmony. You are part of that harmony now. You may have walked through seasons of isolation, but that was preparation, not punishment. You were being refined alone so that you could now connect without losing your authenticity. The chosen must first learn solitude before they can carry community. There's something sacred about this kind of fellowship. It's more than friendship. It's recognition. When two chosen ones meet, heaven smiles, for it sees prophecy fulfilled. The light in one affirms the light in the other. That's why you feel peace when you find them. It's not comfort alone. It's confirmation. The gathering doesn't always happen in churches or conferences. Sometimes it's in coffee shops, hallways, or even quiet messages exchanged in the dark hours of the night. It's not about where, it's about who. Heaven is building networks of light, threads of destiny connecting across nations and generations. And soon, that web of light will cover the earth, not a movement built by men, but a mosaic assembled by God. No one will claim ownership, because the glory will belong only to Him. The chosen are not gathering to build empires, but to reveal eternity. You will know them by their peace. You will recognize them by their consistency. They carry no arrogance, no need for recognition. Their strength is gentleness, their authority is love. When they speak, the weary rest. When they move, chaos settles. These are heaven's ambassadors, quiet flames, hidden warriors, unshakable hearts. And as they gather, heaven leans closer. The sound of their unity becomes worship. The earth begins to heal under their presence. And you, standing among them, will realize this was always the plan. The chosen were never meant to walk alone. They were always meant to form a living constellation of light. The crown of completion rests lightly upon you now. It's not made of metal or jewels, but of something eternal: obedience, endurance, and faith woven together by unseen hands. It does not glisten in sunlight, it glows in the spirit. You earned it not by striving, but by staying. Not by winning loudly, but by standing quietly when everything inside you wanted to fall. Heaven crowns finishers differently. The world gives awards for speed. Heaven gives crowns for faithfulness. The crown you carry is a reflection of every moment you could have quit but didn't. It's made from your perseverance, your surrender, your silent yeses. There's a story of a runner in ancient times who didn't win first place but refused to abandon the race. When he reached the finish line long after the crowd had gone, the king himself was waiting. He said, "I sent you to finish, not to be first." The runner fell to his knees and wept, not because he had arrived, but because he was seen. That's how heaven views you now. You finished what others thought you couldn't even begin. completion isn't perfection. It's continuation. It means that something inside you has reached maturity. A seed planted long ago has finally borne fruit. You can feel it in your spirit. The weight has shifted. The striving has quieted. The journey that once felt endless now feels purposeful. As revealed in the second book of Timothy, chapter 4, verse 7, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Those words echo through eternity, and they echo in you now. You have fought your fight, not someone else's. You have finished your race. Even when the path twisted and the light dimmed, you have kept the faith. Even when the silence lasted longer than you expected, the crown upon you is not just honor, it's recognition. Heaven knows the cost. Every tear that fell in secret, every time you forgave without apology, every prayer whispered in exhaustion, all of it became the gold that shaped your crown. There's a peculiar peace that comes with completion. It's not the thrill of beginning or the struggle of the middle, it's the stillness of arrival. You stand now in that sacred in-between, the place where endings and beginnings embrace. Heaven calls this moment rest, not retirement. For even as one chapter closes, another unfolds. The story doesn't end here. It expands. The crown is not for display, it's for delegation. Those who are crowned are called to lift others. The weight of your testimony now becomes the wind in someone else's journey. You no longer carry burdens, you carry blueprints. What broke you becomes instruction for the ones still walking through the fire. Picture this, a soft rain falling on soil that once cracked with drought. Every drop is a memory returning to bless the ground that endured. That's what this season feels like. Heaven watering every promise that once seemed dry. And maybe now, you feel that quiet invitation rising again, that gentle nudge to share this light. Not as noise, but as nourishment. When you like, it's not approval, it's an echo. A way of saying, I see what heaven is doing here. When you share, it's not promotion, it's planting. A small seed of light sown into another soul's timeline. And when you subscribe, it's not loyalty to a voice, but connection to a flow, a way of staying within the current where heaven keeps speaking. These simple gestures are like lamps placed in windows during a storm. They guide those still wandering, reminding them that light still exists, that hope still lives. Every time you pass the message forward, you're extending heaven's reach without realizing it. You're saying, let this flame travel further than I can go. And if these words stirred something within you, even a spark of recognition, leave a comment below. Just a single word, or a symbol, anything that says, I'm still running my race. It's not for numbers. It's a way of saying to heaven and to others walking beside you, we're still moving forward together. Your crown isn't about standing above others. It's about kneeling for them. It's about choosing to be the hand that lifts, the voice that comforts, the light that lingers after the noise fades. Completion does not end your calling, it deepens it. The crown does not signal rest from purpose, but rest in purpose. You've moved from striving to stewardship, from asking, why me, to whispering, use me. 1. So let your next step be taken gently, but with confidence. You're not walking as someone waiting for approval, you're walking as someone already crowned. And as you go, let every act, every share, every word you release carry the fragrance of heaven's peace. Your crown is invisible to the world, but radiant in heaven's sight. And every time your story touches another heart, heaven leans closer and whispers again, "Well done, beloved finisher. Well done." The new horizon stretches before you, vast, golden, and quiet. It's not loud like the storms that preceded it. It hums with promise, with the soft rhythm of peace that follows fulfillment. You have walked through the valley, climbed through the shadows, and now you stand on higher ground. The air here feels different. It's thinner, purer, filled with the breath of heaven. You can feel that something has shifted inside you. You no longer crave the noise of confirmation. You crave the calm of communion. You've learned that destiny doesn't rush, it unfolds, like dawn spilling over distant hills. You no longer need to prove that you're chosen. You simply live it. This horizon is not a reward. It's a realm, a space where obedience and rest meet. Heaven is not just sending you forward, it's walking with you into the next chapter. Every scar you carry has become a map. Every tear has become a compass. The things that once hurt you now guide you. It's strange, isn't it? How peace can feel both heavy and light at once. Heavy with meaning, light with freedom. You have learned what it means to trust, even when you cannot trace. You've discovered that real faith is not about avoiding storms, it's about walking through them without losing your song. As written in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." That is heaven's word for you as you step into this new horizon. Courage will not always feel like confidence. Sometimes it feels like quiet endurance. But the God who guided you through the fire will not abandon you in the light. He does not lead halfway. Where he begins, he completes. You are no longer standing on the soil of survival. You are standing on the soil of stability. The fears that once echoed loud within you now sound distant. You have outgrown them. You've been stretched, refined, and enlarged. Heaven has made you capable of carrying peace without losing passion. The new horizon doesn't promise ease, but it promises purpose. There will still be challenges, but they will no longer break you. They will build you. You've already learned how to bend without shattering. You've already proven that surrender is stronger than striving. Take a moment and imagine the path ahead. The fields are open, the sky wide, the air tastes like promise. Every step you take now leaves imprints of peace. Not panits. You walk differently now, slower, steadier, more certain of who walks beside you. This new season is not about doing more, it's about being more, being present, being grounded, being aware that heaven's rhythm beats inside you. You have learned to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. You no longer chase signs, you are one. Sometimes, this horizon will be quiet. So quiet that you'll wonder if heaven has gone still again. But silence in this season no longer means absence, it means invitation. It's heaven's way of saying, walk with me in peace, not pressure. You'll begin to see how everything fits, how what once looked random now looks refined. The disappointments become direction. The waiting becomes wisdom. The losses become lessons. This is how heaven writes, not in straight lines, but in holy circles that always lead back to purpose. Do not rush this horizon. Let it unfold like sunrise. You are not behind. You are right on time. Every delay that once frustrated you was heaven aligning timing with capacity. The things that are coming now require the version of you that waited. You have become the kind of person who can carry what you once prayed for. The peace you feel is not idleness, it's readiness. Heaven trusts you now with greater things because you have proven faithful in small ones. So, breathe. Step forward without fear. You don't have to see the whole path. You only have to trust the light that guides it. This horizon belongs to those who dare to walk in faith, not sight. The dawn before you is not new to heaven. It was written long ago. But now, finally, you are ready to see it. The new horizon is not something you approach. It's something that rises to meet you. The sky ahead hums with quiet expectancy, like creation itself, waiting for your next step. Every breeze carries whispers of grace, reminding you, you were made for this horizon. And as you walk forward, light follows your footprints. Even the shadows you leave behind glow faintly. Proof that where you've been now radiates redemption. When heaven rejoices again, it's not because of a single act, it's because of your consistency. The first celebration came when you said yes. But this one comes because you kept saying it, day after day, moment after moment. Your faith didn't fade. You learned to walk with grace. Even when the path turned uncertain, that steady obedience has become heaven's favorite melody. The angels no longer lean forward to see if you will endure. They now watch to see how you will shine. Every breath you take in faith sends another ripple through eternity. Another chord in heaven's ongoing song of delight. You have become a rhythm heaven recognizes. A steady pulse of light that will not go out. This second rejoicing is quieter than the first, but deeper. It is not the sound of surprise, it's the sound of fulfillment. The Father delights not only in beginnings but in perseverance, in the hearts that continue to trust even after the music fades. You have changed. The storms that once shook you now serve as reminders of how far you've come. The questions that once haunted you now feel answered, not by explanation, but by peace. There's a maturity in your faith that cannot be taught. It was forged in fire, watered by tears, and crowned by grace. Heaven rejoices because endurance has found a home in you. The joy of this moment is not loud celebration, but quiet recognition. Heaven acknowledging that you've become everything you were meant to be. As written in the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 36, you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He has promised. Oh, that promise is not distant anymore. It breathes within you. You have done His will not once, but continually. You've turned obedience into lifestyle, faith into atmosphere, prayer into reflex. Heaven rejoices not for an event, but for a life that reflects divine rhythm. You used to wonder if your persistence mattered, if anyone saw the effort behind your quiet faithfulness. Heaven did. Every unseen act of kindness, every moment you chose mercy over pride, every time you whispered still, I believe those were worship songs. And heaven recorded every note. There's a celebration in heaven that never truly ends, an unbroken flow of gratitude from the Creator toward His creation. It's not dependent on perfection, it's drawn by pursuit. God rejoices not in your flawlessness, but in your follow-through. The sound of your continued obedience echoes louder than any mistake you've made along the way. And now, that joy returns to you. You'll start to feel it in moments of stillness, a warmth in your spirit, a softness in your chest, a sense of rightness that needs no words. That's heaven's joy reflected in human form. It's what happens when alignment becomes identity. You are no longer striving for belonging. You are resting in it. Heaven rejoices because you finally understand that love was never something to earn. It was the atmosphere you were always meant to breathe. There's something holy about longevity in faith. It's easy to start, but only the refined keep walking. The difference between calling and completion is endurance, and you have proven that your spirit carries both. Heaven's joy now mirrors your peace. It doesn't roar, it radiates. The angels don't celebrate because you reached perfection. They celebrate because you've reached authenticity. Your worship has become honesty. Your faith has become friendship. Your prayer has become partnership. The heavens open, not with lightning, but with light, gentle, golden, endless. The sound is not thunder, but harmony. Your name, once whispered in anticipation, now resounds in gratitude. Heaven says not, finally, but faithfully. You can almost feel it now, the warmth, the applause, the whisper of divine approval moving through eternity. Heaven rejoices, not because you have finished everything, but because you continue to begin. Every morning you rise with faith. Every step you take in trust. Every breath you offer in surrender, that is what keeps heaven singing. The angels have seen your growth. The Spirit has sealed your journey. And the Father smiles. You've become what you were meant to be, a living song, a reflection of divine endurance. Heaven rejoices again, not because you arrived, but because you remained. The journey doesn't end here, it evolves. The same light that once called you now moves through you, guiding others toward their own. Yes, you have become the evidence that obedience sustains, that faith endures, that love never ends. The celebration in heaven continues, echoing softly through eternity, not as noise, but as knowing. For when heaven looks at you now, it doesn't see a follower or a servant. It sees family. And now, the journey comes full circle. The message that began as a whisper has become a song, not just in heaven, but in you. You've walked through surrender, refinement, and revelation. You've stood when it was dark, and you've glowed when no one else could see. Every word written before this moment was not meant to impress you, but to remind you, you were chosen for this time, this path, this purpose. Look at how far you've come. You didn't just survive the wilderness, you built altars in it. You didn't just walk through fire, you carried embers out to warm others. The echo of heaven that once called you has now made its home inside you. You are no longer the listener, you are the voice, the vessel, the continuation of the divine story. And maybe, as you reach this ending, something in you is stirring that familiar pull of recognition. If what you've read has lit even a single spark inside your heart, don't let it fade. Let it move through you. When you like, it's not a routine click. It's you placing a small stone on this altar of remembrance, saying, I was here when heaven spoke. And when you share, it's not to spread words, but to scatter seeds, tiny sparks of hope that may ignite someone else's night. Somewhere out there, someone is waiting for light, and your hand might be the one that passes the flame. And if this voice has walked with you, taught you, healed you, then subscribe, not as a formality, but as an act of connection. It's your way of saying, I will keep walking with heaven's rhythm. Finally, Before you go, pause for one breath and leave a comment. Even a single word, a symbol, or a number that marks this moment between you and eternity. It's not for others to see. It's for heaven to remember. The message doesn't end here. It lives where you carry it in your choices, in your light, in your daily yes. You are not the ending. You are the echo.